We're going to start now the while and the for loops, exactly as we have seen in algorithmics. The outline is then very simple, starting with the while loop, then the for loop. The while loop, its definition, I remind you, it is the sequence is executed as many times as necessary while a given condition is satisfied. If you remember this program that displays squares while the value is different from 0 is written this way. You see that we have a while here and we put between parentheses our condition and we put the braces, and inside you can put as many statements as you need, and the condition is at the end reconsidered and evaluated. In case it is true, we continue. In C we keep exactly the same, and you see that here this same program is written in C as follows. So you see here we have condition different. In C becomes exclamation mark equal. So while the value is different from 0, we put the braces, we have our different statements with semicolon at the end, of course, exactly as we have seen in the slide. So we need to first of all compile gcc while.c, and then we can execute. Type the value. So for instance 9, the square is 81, 7, the square is 49. Let's say minus 5, the square is 25. Now let's type 0. I exit the program. Exactly as we have suspected. So as soon as the value becomes 0 is equal to 0, so the while is considered is evaluated as false, and then we exit the loop. Let's see now the for. The for loop is a bit different. Remind you about first of all the definition. The for is used to execute a loop a fixed number of times. And this is the algorithm we have discussed before. You see that here we go from 0 to 50 with a gap of 2. So we start with 0, then 2, then 4, then 6, blah, 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 till 50. The for in C is a bit different in terms of syntax. So we have all these components. So we have the keyword for, and we have 1, 2, and 3 components. Let me explain this. So we start with the keyword for, then we have what we call the control variable name. In this case it is counter. Most of the time we don't use counter, but we use the word I, but you can put any other one. You have the initial value here to start with, and then you have the condition when to stop. Once it is evaluated as false, then you exit the for. So you see here that we start from 1 and we loop till we reach the value of 10, and then this is the final value of your control variable, and then you have the increment. How are you going to increment? If you put plus plus counter, so counter will jump from 1 to 2 to 3, etc. But if we put counter equals counter plus 2, it means that now the gap becomes 2, and this is what we have in this simple program. So you see that the for has these 3 components, because here it's 0, so we put 0, so 0 till 20, and then we jump with a gap of 2. Here we have another program that sums 5 typed numbers. So we ask the user to type 5 numbers, and then we give the sum of all these values. So I have the I that is used in the for, I have the number that is typed by the user, and then I have the sum, which represents the variable in which I'm going to sum all the different numbers. So I initialize the sum with 0. I have a for that starts with 1, ends at 5, and each time I go from I to the next one, I plus plus. So I ask the user to type a number, I read it, and then I add sum equals sum plus number or sum plus equal number, and then at the end I display the sum to the user. We can start with this one to show you the jumping of 2 from 0 to till 20, and then the sum. So let's start from the first one. So it is gcc, it's for.c. Here we have nothing to input but simply to display. So you see from 0 till 20. Let me clear and then compile gcc sum of 5 numbers. Let's execute. Type the value number 1, 8 for instance. Type the value minus 5. times the value number 3, 9, 3, 0. And then it gives me the sum of 5 values is 15. If you sum, you can count it's 15. As a summary here, so the while loop is exactly the same as the one studied in algorithmics, but the for loop in the C programming language contains 3 components separated with semicolon.